how to get rid of eczema naturally. If you have ever experienced the discomfort associated with eczema, then I am sure you have tried multiple options for treatment, yet you're probably still struggling with eczema. If that sounds like you, then you are in the right place. In today's video, I am here to answer that question. So let's dive on in. Hi, I'm Dr. Kelly Shockley, Doctor of Cause Chiropractic, board certified in sports medicine and specialized in clinical nutrition. In this video, we're going to be going over the number one biggest lie we've been told as it relates to what could be causing your eczema that you no longer have to believe. Then I'm going to share with you some of the best lifestyle hacks that can stop eczema in its tracks. And finally, I will be sharing with you a little known trigger that could be causing your eczema to flare like no other. Let's get started. What is the number one biggest lie that we've been told as it relates to what could be causing your eczema? Many doctors out there and dermatologists like to try to tell you that food has nothing to do with your eczema. And that could not be further from the truth. You see, your digestive system is connected to your skin. In fact, they're continuous. Like if you picture yourself as a donut, where your skin is the outer part of the donut and that hole in the center is where your digestive system is, you can see it's 100% continuous. In fact, they're made up of the same exact cells. They're endothelial cells. So if your gut is not working the way that it should be, it's not eliminating waste the way that it should be, then one of its other approaches for trying to handle that is using your skin to do that job. I have a son who he's had eczema on and off throughout the years, and very much so has food as underlying causes as to why he will end up with eczema. I think he got some of his lovely food sensitivities from me. I can remember when he was probably only 3 months old. Now, I'm a brand new mom and nursing him like every hour and a half, starving, grabbing anything that I could eat because I couldn't keep up with him. He was growing like a weed. And they took him in for his well check, and his skin was kind of dry, and it was still wintertime and it's dry out here in Colorado, but we were going more towards spring and I didn't know what was going on. And she looked at me and she's like, "Oh, this is eczema." It did not look like eczema. It just looked like dry skin. It wasn't in the classic presentation spots of eczema. It wasn't in his elbow pits or his knee pits. It wasn't on his wrists. There wasn't discoid type patterns to it. Like nothing. It just was dry skin. And so she's the one who told me that and said, maybe it has something to do with your food. And I had already had patients in my world who had eczema that I knew very much had to do with food. So one of the things that I was doing that I never do is, again, I told you I was trying to grab anything I could to eat because I was starving. And I had gotten into the habit of eating these like protein granola bars that had peanuts in them. Now, I don't eat peanuts on a regular basis. I don't believe that they're the best thing for us to consume, but I was starving and they were easy. So I cut those out because it was the only thing that had changed. And literally within just a few weeks, his skin was completely clear. Now, he's eating clearly on his own. He's like 9.5 years old and he doesn't have issues with eczema right now. But last year, a lot changed. We moved locations and I didn't have the same amount of help that I've had before in the past with food. And we started eating foods that I know are triggers for him, like gluten-free products. He does not do well with. He doesn't do well with gluten. He doesn't do well with dyes or anything like that, but we weren't eating as clean and his skin all of a sudden was freaking out. But again, different pattern than the classic. It was just in his knuckles and he had a couple of like discoid patches on his back. He also has environmental allergies thanks to his dad's side, and the kid just couldn't breathe. And then we had all the fires and the smoke was awful. So I ran a bunch of tests on him just to get clarity on what all is my son reacting to right now. And it was daunting. I do not recommend starting with a food sensitivity test. Okay, I'm going to share with you what the top triggers generally are. I would start with that. I would not pay the money because they're expensive to do a food sensitivity test, because one thing I can also share with you is when your gut is upset, and you do not have to have gut symptoms in order for this to be a true statement. If there's inflammation in your gut, which is part of why it's not happy, right? Then you're going to test sensitive to more things than what you actually are sensitive to. because the threshold of the gut has lowered. Okay. So it's not really the most, it's not really where I would start with somebody. I would clear out what I'm going to share with you is the top offenders and then go from there. The top offenders, you remove those, it should reduce the inflammation that's in the system and you should be doing a lot better. If you're still having a lot of issues and you want to explore more foods, then by all means at that point, do it. But be sure you're not consuming these things to begin with, because what happens is when I got my son's results back, he was sensitive to everything. And I had cleaned up his diet before I even did the testing. I went back to just fully eating more paleo based. I was making everything from scratch again. We weren't eating out ever, which when you're a single mom and you work full time, and I moved further away from work and, have a second business online, cooking from scratch is not always very easy to get accomplished, but it was critically important for my son's health. His skin was already starting to clear up too, mind you, with just cutting out the offenders and feeding him clean, whole, made from, scratch foods. Well, then I got his test results back and he tested sensitive to all of the paleo alternatives. So not only could he not do any gluten containing or gluten-free types of grains, he now also was testing sensitive to like arrowroot and almond flour and coconut flour and everything. So for me, it's okay. It was a little daunting, I won't lie, but I have done this since I was in high school. I know how to eliminate foods. I know what other alternatives there are. And I don't have an issue with cooking because we're totally food snobs. And we've done that since I was in high school. So I shifted things up and I avoided all of that. And I mean, his skin was beautiful and his nose was clearing up and life was looking so much better. He can get away with having all of the paleo alternatives now because his system calmed down enough. The inflammation went away in his system. So his threshold's back up where it should be. And those are no longer considered triggers for him. So case being, I know what this is like, and I've dealt with this firsthand for the last 9.5 years of my son's life with dealing with eczema and how do you actually control it and where is it coming from? So the top offenders, like when he was little, I shared with you peanuts were a thing, and he does not have a peanut allergy, though we do not eat peanuts just because I don't believe they're the healthiest thing for us to consume. But the top 4 offenders that if you are having eczema and you consume any of these regularly, these would be the guys that I would eliminate first and see how your body responds. The first one would be dairy. Dairy is a huge offender, and there's a lot of details that we could get into, but I'm not going to take time to do that in this video. But dairy is a big offender. So if you're consuming dairy, cut that out, okay? All of the gluten containing everything. Gluten's another big trigger. And so are eggs, and so are nuts. So if you eat all of those, or at least more than one, here's my suggestion. Pick one and cut it out for a couple of weeks and see if you notice any changes. Okay. If not, still keep it out and then cut out another one. Or if you want to just go full tilt, cut all 4 of them out, keep them out of your diet for at least 2 weeks, see how you're doing. If you're improving, I would not put them back into your diet for at least the month. And then if you want to challenge something and see how you're doing, pick one. It's like if you've ever had a kid, okay, when they become 6 months old and they're at a place where you can start giving them more like real food, you pick one food and you give that to them and then you wait 3 days, or you don't change, like you don't add another food until at least 3 days. And if you look at the research, it's more suggestive at least 5 to 7 days, because if there's an issue with the food and it's a sensitivity, it's a delayed reaction. So it may take 3 days to present. Oftentimes that's the most common time frame, but I've even heard up to 2 weeks. So if you want to cut them out and then you're not entirely certain maybe which one, or if they are all things that you're sensitive to, wait the month, try one thing. Try one thing within that week and see how your body responds. If you are okay, then maybe that one particular thing you're not ultimately sensitive to. Okay. A true elimination diet, you're going to keep those out of your diet for at least 3 months. But you can do this and then test it out. Oftentimes when we eliminate something that you're sensitive to and then you add it back in, your body will give you a more immediate reaction or response to putting that in, because now what happened is you gave it a break. It was able to heal some, which allows its ability to tell you what you did was offensive to be increased. So the next time you eat a food, if you're sensitive to it, you can have a more immediate and sometimes a more heightened response of the body being like, hey, we don't like that. Don't do that again. And it's not that you're hypersensitive, it's that you let your body heal so it can actually do its job and tell you that what you did was offensive. Okay, so if you haven't eliminated any foods at all, those are the 4: dairy, eggs, nuts, and gluten. Try to remove any or all of them and see if your eczema improves. I would be shocked if it didn't, okay? Now I'm curious, have you been told that food has nothing to do with eczema, or is your doctor someone who actually is open to that scenario? I would love to hear your feedback, so just drop your comment down below in the comments so I can see what everybody is being told or what we believe. Awesome. Now we're going to go over the best lifestyle hacks that will help stop eczema in its tracks. Now, eczema isn't necessarily just the result of food sensitivity or what you're putting in your system. There are very much so external, outside of the body factors that can trigger eczema as well. So being able to cut back your exposure to these particular types of triggers is going to be extremely helpful if that's part of what is triggering your outbreak or flaring your eczema. These are going to be lifestyle hacks that I have found to minimize that exposure to those external factors. One thing that can be very helpful is protecting your skin. If you have to do any work with dyes or different chemicals that are harsh really on everybody, using proper gloves and making sure you clean up right away afterwards will be helpful for creating a protective barrier between your skin and whatever it is that you're having to work with. In the world of, hygiene products and laundry detergents and soaps, looking for those hypoallergenic options will be helpful, or honestly, just finding things that don't have chemicals in them. They're more green or they're clean are some of the catchy phrases that we're using now. Again, nobody really should be using those products because those chemicals end up being absorbed into the skin of everybody. But when your system is already vulnerable, these can be irritants and triggers to set off one of those eczema flare-ups or reactions. So staying away from even things like fragrances and perfumes and other preservatives are going to be helpful for decreasing that external trigger factor. If part of why eczema happens is because your threshold is lower, then implementing lifestyle factors that help to just keep you healthier overall are going to help to raise your threshold so that you're not as sensitive to everything around you. What I mean by threshold is, what does your body perceive as a stress that it reacts to versus something that it's not stressful to it at all? And this can change from a day-to-day basis depending on what's going on in your life. So when we want to have, we want to have a high threshold, because what that means is ultimately our body will perceive less things as stressful, and at that rate won't be as reactive. Part of how you can do that lifestyle-wise is making sure you're exercising regularly, eating healthy, whole foods that you've prepared on your own, not eating out on a regular basis or prepackaged, processed, fast food, convenient foods, all the foods we know that are stressful for our health in general. Making sure you're sleeping well at night is also critically important, because that's when your immune system kicks into gear. That's when your body repairs and heals itself. So when you want to increase threshold, you definitely need to be sleeping well at night. So these are some of the positive lifestyle hacks to put in there that can decrease your likelihood of having eczema or having a flare-up happen again. As far as if you have eczema right now, I know medically they give steroid creams, and while they may have a place, exposing yourself to steroids on a regular basis, even when it's topical, because remember, your skin is your largest organ system and it takes in a lot. It absorbs things through the skin and puts it right into the bloodstream, which ultimately means you're exposing yourself to steroids on a regular basis that can lead to all kinds of other health problems. So an alternative you can try that I did with my son that actually worked really well was just using coconut oil. Every time he'd get out of the bath, which another lifestyle factor in here real quick, if you avoid using like really hot water, you will not stress your skin as much either when you're bathing or showering. Okay. So when I get my kid out of the tub, I would like just rub coconut oil all over him, and especially on any spots he may have had. And it was always soothing. Coconut oil is very anti-inflammatory. And when your eczema is really bothersome, it's because of the inflammation that's in that area. It also is incredibly antimicrobial. So it's going to be protective of killing off anything that's in the area that could be aggravating or stressing the eczema as well. I also found when my son, he will, because he has allergies, he will break out in hives periodically as a result of, being around a dog or whatever the case may be. I will use coconut oil to help take out the itch. And again, it's partly because it reduces that inflammation. Another alternative that you may have at home, because it's becoming so much more widely used, is a topical CBD kind of a cream. Again, it's similar in coconut oil of the action of reducing inflammation. So instead of reaching for one of those like cortisone creams or anti-itch type cream, which is still cortisone cream, just a generic word for that, reach for coconut oil. Or if you have CBD, try that and see if you can get symptom relief that way without then having to actually expose yourself to steroids. That would be awesome. Now, before I get into the little known trigger that might be flaring up your eczema, I want to just take a moment and remind you to click that subscribe button right down below here. Turn the notifications on. That way you never miss out on a future episode. I am producing content regularly to help you be able to take back control of your health. I cover topics from gut health to brain health, cardiovascular health, diabetes, you name it. It's there so that you have the information and can be empowered to take back control of your health and achieve what I like to call total body mastery. So again, just click that subscribe button, turn the notifications on, and you will be set. Awesome. Now, what is this little known trigger that is flaring up your eczema? It is stress. I saw this in very real time with my son as well when he was young. A little bit of a backstory. I went through a divorce when he was 2. And mostly he doesn't see his dad on a regular basis whatsoever. And when he was really little, there's no way to fully explain what's going on or for them to be able to explain or share their emotions around things. And nothing bad, like his dad's fine, okay? But when he would have a visit, which happened infrequently, Hunter's eczema would show back up. Or if he was currently dealing with one, it would flare. And that happened just within a day of hanging out with his dad. Now, again, everything was fine. He was happy to see his dad, but it was a big change in his routine. And kids are creatures of routine and habit. Heck, we are creatures of routine and habit. And his was dramatically changed anytime his dad would pop into town. So I noticed the eczema would flare. And also, we're exes for a reason. And while fine, he was probably also picking up on a little bit of the tension or stress that I may have been feeling or his dad was feeling with dealing with things. Okay. So when it comes to stress, I have not found a way to make us invincible yet. I'll keep you posted if I do. The biggest thing I know is we have to figure out how can we properly manage stress. The world we are in has stress on a regular basis. And when we're feeling stressed, or even we're not feeling stressed, but the body is showing signs that it's stressed out, it keeps us from being able to function normally. It puts us in this state of being able to fight or flee or freeze in a situation. That's your flight or fight response. When that happens, one of the things that is detrimental and is part of the aggravator of your eczema is your inflammation level increases. Which, guess what? When your inflammation level increases, your threshold decreases. So there's another result as to why stress is going to flare eczema, because now you're going to be more reactive to the world around you compared to what you would be otherwise. So implementing stress management techniques on a real regular basis, honestly, daily would be ideal, is critically important for helping keep at bay any type of flare-up that could happen. That could be anything. Whatever calms you, soothes you is what you should be doing. So if you're not a fan of meditation or you don't know how to meditate, that's fine. You could just focus on deep breathing. That is very calming to the body. Getting lost in a good book. Exercising is amazing for reducing stress. So like I said, whatever technique or what you know kind of soothes your soul outside of medicating with alcohol, mind you, okay, because that will increase inflammation and decrease your threshold. Implement it on a regular basis and you will decrease this trigger that people really have no idea that it can provoke eczema breakouts. Heck, it can even provoke hives too, which are kind of similar, even though they're different. So get on top of your stress, and that will be another great lifestyle hack and factor for reducing your eczema and stopping it in its tracks. Now, if you're sitting there still kind of pondering this whole thing on food sensitivities and just not really knowing what a clean, healthy, hypoallergenic type of a diet could look like, don't worry, I've got you. If you look down in the description below this video, click on that so it expands and you can see what's there. Scroll down, find the link that says free 7-day full body reset or something like that. It's the full body reset meal plan that I want you to go to. There's a link, click it. You'll get immediate access to the 7-day full body reset meal plan that is designed to reduce the inflammation, increase, your threshold, help heal your gut, which ultimately ends up calming down your skin and helping you get rid of your eczema, maybe even once and for all. This was designed for busy people, okay, or people who don't love cooking and you don't have to cook every single meal every single day. There's a grocery list in there for you, and then there's simple, delicious recipes that don't have many ingredients, don't take very long to cook, and you can start eating your way back to health and less eczema. I appreciate you so greatly. Don't forget to click that link down in the description and that subscribe button, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. God bless.